Well, you know how everyone thinks Jesus was born on December 25th? Like, that's why we celebrate Christmas on that day, right? But here's something super interesting. We actually don't know exactly when Jesus was born. You see, the Bible, that's the special book that tells us about Jesus, doesn't say, hey, Jesus was born on December 25th. In fact, some really smart people who study this stuff think Jesus might have been born in spring or early fall. Want to know why? Well, in the story, there were shepherds watching their sheep at night. And you know what? Shepherds usually only did that during warmer months because, well, it's kind of cold to be sitting outside with sheep in winter, right? So here's another cool part about where Jesus was born. You know how in Christmas plays, there's always this mean innkeeper who tells Mary and Joseph, sorry, no room. Well, that's not exactly right. You see, back in those days, they didn't really have hotels like we have now. Instead, when people traveled, they usually stayed with their families. The funny thing is, the word that got translated as inn actually meant more like a guest room in someone's house. So it was probably more like Mary and Joseph were staying with relatives, but their house was super crowded, kind of like when all your cousins come to visit at the same time. And get this, most houses back then had a special area where they kept their animals, sort of like having a basement, but for animals. That's probably where Jesus was born, not in some lonely stable far away. Oh, and let me tell you about the wise men. This part is really interesting. You know how everyone thinks 3 wise men showed up right after Jesus was born? Well, that's not quite right either. First of all, we don't actually know how many wise men there were. People just thought there were 3 because they brought 3 different gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Those were like super fancy presents back then. And here's something even cooler. These wise men, they were probably like ancient scientists or star studiers. They didn't show up the night Jesus was born like we see in nativity scenes. They actually came way later, maybe when Jesus was already walking and talking. We know this because by the time they found Jesus, he wasn't in that animal area anymore. He was in a house. Now, let's talk about the angels. This part is super interesting too. You see, an angel named Gabriel came to tell Mary she was going to have a very special baby. But when it came to Joseph, that's Jesus' dad on earth, something different happened. The angel talked to him in a dream. That was actually pretty normal back then. People often got important messages in their dreams. And you know who got the most amazing announcement? The shepherds. Now, here's something you might not know. Back then, shepherds were kind of like, well, imagine if someone wasn't invited to any birthday parties. That's how people treated shepherds. But guess what? They were the ones who got to hear about Jesus first. People often think there was this huge choir of angels singing in the sky to the shepherds, but the Bible actually doesn't say they were singing. It just says there was a heavenly host praising God. You know what's cool? Back then, people sometimes used that phrase to talk about the stars in the sky, so maybe it was more like a quiet, amazing moment than a big, loud concert. So you see, the real story is different from what we usually see in Christmas plays and movies, but it's still pretty amazing. It's like, sometimes the truth is even more interesting than what we imagine.